All right. Okay, let me make sure we are live. Let me go ahead and make sure we're live on the group. Let me know if you can see us too, John. It says we're live, so we should be live, but
Yes, sir. I see it.
we are live. I'll go ahead and tag everybody. Go ahead and
Part of me
tag.
feels like it would be better if I tagged everybody with the.
Oh. Hey, if you're watching this, if John tags you, do not be upset. He is very important. And so I don't know if it's something we can like. I don't know if we can avoid it. People just
Yeah, I know. It's just
feel
funny.
so annoyed. But in any case, hey, if you're rolling in, would love to know where you're from. Would love some engagement. I want to hear how many properties you have. I want to know where you're coming in from. I am out of Utah. I'm coming in from a different place than I normally am. Everybody usually sees me in my home office, but today I am in my shipping container office. So we bought these shipping containers for our warehouse because we didn't want to build out the commercial space because it's kind of all sunk costs, and so we bought these shipping containers that eventually I'm going to convert into ADUs. So, and maybe I'll just because I'm on my Osmo, I probably just show people.
Oh yeah, you're from the office.
Look at this, just a little shipping container office. Nothing crazy, nothing
You
crazy.
you in a spot where you can show them what outside that sliding glass door looks like?
No, I actually can't because
Oh.
I got to take the whole computer with me. So,
Oh.
but I would if I could. I'm sorry, you guys aren't getting the office tour, but at least you got the mini office tour. So, um, again, if you're rolling in, I'm excited about today because we're going to be going over some nitty gritty details of how to underwrite a creative deal. So if you're here, please reach out. I want to know where you're coming in from. I want to know how many properties you're currently at. As many of you know, by way of introduction, my name is Lame. I currently am an owner and operator of a short term rental company that focuses on short term rental investments. And we have a portfolio of about 200 plus doors. And we are in about, I mean, at this point, we're pretty much in double digit states. So we're kind of all over. So I know a little bit about the space. The purpose of these calls is really to help bring value to you guys in your portfolio from somebody who has managed to scale a multi figure business. And I'm excited to be able to do that and to go over some of those details with you. I have here on my right, maybe your left, my good old brother, John. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's John. Been doing short-term rentals now for a few years, but been in real estate for 6 or 7. Done flips, done loans, done quite a few things, and but now all about creative finance, buying properties, and working side by side here with Lame on these. And so, pretty stoked about the last few weeks and what we've done, and really given away a ton of our like, I mean, you call it secret sauce, even though it's out there, but like our really bread and butter of what we do. I mean, when you look back a few weeks ago, we did live calls to sellers, right? First, we looked at how to find who to call. Then we did live calls, you and I, and called people. And then we showed how to actually submit an offer, what that offer looks like. And we're doing this one today because I think you and I talked a little bit. We almost kind of skipped a step there a little bit on our offers are typically crafted in a way that is a reflection of the underwriting that we've done. And so we're like, hey, we didn't really show how to underwrite or what we're looking at. So I think that's what we want to look at today, right? Like, how do we underwrite? How do we get that base? Hey, if we think this Airbnb can make $5,000 a month, then we can go back and submit that offer, back down on the numbers that we need to submit an offer. So, yeah.
100%. 100%. Thanks, John, for that intro. And kind of like John said, our goal is to bring continuous value. We are going to be, if you guys haven't already, there's a place, there's a folder where you actually can view all of the past recordings. And we've done these consecutively in orders that matter. So everything from starting with what is creative finance, how do you essentially find a buyer, how do you talk to a potential seller, and now we've arrived at the piece where we are going to be going over how to underwrite a deal. And we're going to really focus on that piece. There may be questions before and after, and those are questions that can be answered as you guys are following through with the other videos. But for the most part, today we are going to be going over how to effectively underwrite a property based on some of the resources that we have available that all of you will have available to as well, because we're going to give it to you. So,
hey, Lame, real quick, if someone is brand new to real estate or even short-term rental, when we say underwrite, what exactly do you mean? What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, really what an underwrite is more or less analyzing if a property is going to be a good investment or not. And there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure there's many of you that have learned a hard lesson, as have we, that you can't just buy any house in any location that looks any way to be able to perform. Even properties that, in your mind you think would do well based on it being looking beautiful, or maybe in a location that you think more about the traveling avatar than most. But ultimately, it's important to understand the numbers behind, if a deal is going to be a good cash flowing rental or not, right? And that's really what our goal is today, is to go over our tips and tricks and strategies and how we're looking at these deals to make sure that it is a good buy. So that's essentially what analyzing is, what underwriting is, more or less. So you have anything to add to that, John?
Nope, I think you pretty much hammered it.
Okay. So we're going to dive right into this. Okay. We've done some backlog, right? So when we're going to underwrite a property or analyze a property, we've already identified one, or should have, or at least a couple. We should have an idea based on all of the prior steps that we've taken up to this point. So for those of you that, were following us before, we've already understood and identified what creative and seller finance is. We understand where to find these properties based on motivation, based on going on community Facebook pages, things of that nature. And then the last one that we talked about last week is we then know how to, once we've identified it, once we've, reached out to them, we did sales calls. We showed you guys how to do that. We have a script we can give you. But then once you've gotten to that point, you've then submitted an offer, or about to submit an offer, based on the analytics that we're about to show you right now, right? And so let's just dive right into it. We've already essentially identified a property. And I don't know, I don't want to go too deep into it, John, but do you want to touch briefly on how we found this deal, or where we found this deal in the context of it?
I mean, as briefly as we have created relationships now with people that will send us deals because they know we are buyers and that we follow through with it. So this deal was actually sent to us by a wholesaler who identified this property and has already pre-negotiated probably 90% of the way a seller finance and subject to kind of hybrid deal on this property for us, and then brought this deal and said, hey, is this one you would think about taking? And so we took that as, well, let's plug it in. Let's do a little bit of underwriting or analyzing of it and see if that's something we want to follow through, or if it's a good offer or not.
Absolutely. And that's like the easiest way to find deals, is relationships. If you're not, because I've had a lot of feedback of people saying like, hey, I'm not a salesman like you, Lame. And frankly, you don't have to be. We have a lot of students that are, quite literally, they're just introverts, but they just stick to the process that we teach them, and they've closed deals. However, if you're less comfortable than that, the next easiest way is just to jump on our community Facebook pages and look for deals that people have that they're selling, and you can essentially close on those deals because they have the contract. They've already done the grunt work for you negotiating the deal. You just got to essentially pay them for their time, right? And so this is one of those. We have found a deal that is already a active short-term rental, okay? And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the potential market, okay? So there's a few things that I'm going to look at. This is the property. I typed in the address. This is the address right here. Right away, there's a few things that you'll want to make sure of, is that you're filtering the bed and bath count and the guest count as soon as you type in an address. Because what'll happen, and let's see if I can just do this again. Because what'll happen is AirDNA actually will, it'll actually automate for you what it thinks it is. So it'll be a 3-3, and those numbers are different. On a 3-3, this is saying there's only 6 guests that can sleep in it. That's if you have a bunk room, that's not true. But also, it's not a 3-3; it's a 5. I think it's a 5-3, right? It's a 5-3, and on a 5-bedroom, you bet your butt I'm going to have a bunk room, maybe 2. So I can push the needle to essentially get 10, 20 or more people to stay in the property. And I usually try to err on the side of aggression in the sense that I'm trusting myself to be able to go and fill beds when I go to design, right? And I believe this property already did have a bunk room in there, but you'll see in our underwrite that even when we're buying properties that are short-term rentals actively, we'll actually, in addition, we'll still add more to bring more value, and that may be more beds, this, that, the other, etc. The key factor here is when I'm considering the underwrite and I'm looking at guest count and everything else, I'm just making sure that I can deliver on it comfortably. If it's a 5-bedroom and there's already a bunk room and it's fitting maybe 16, I just need to make sure if I am saying that I am going to sleep 20 plus, then I deliver on it. Because once you go underneath that, the numbers change, right? These didn't change that much, but they will on others, from especially in certain areas. If 16 guests to 10 will drastically change your numbers, and so you just want to be aware of those things. So the first thing I'm doing is I am looking at essentially a market. AirDNA is a lot cheaper than it used to be. Now you can pay a monthly fee and you can have access to specific markets that you want, specific ones that you're going to buy in. We have the universal monthly subscription, so it allows us to see everywhere. But this data is very important, because now that I can see where my property is at based on this right here, I can essentially then go and click on some of these homes around it to be able to determine, can I compete with this property? And so ironically enough, this is actually the property. And so this is the property. That's why the bubble was right next to it. But this property is already doing 106,000 a year of annual revenue, right? But principally, what I want to do is I want to find other properties that are similar in nature that I can look at and determine, can I compete with this? Is this something that I feel like I can confidently compete in this? And just looking at this property based on our property, I absolutely think you can. Let me just come back to this one, see if I can pull it up here. So it's actually a dead listing. Let me see if the Verbo will pull up. Yeah, so the Verbo's not even pull up. It's probably because it's for sale. So let me just look at the photos. So this is a property that I'm looking at, and basically I'm just doing the eye test. Can this property compete with this? Right? Basically looking at the pool. The other pool's a little bit bigger, but in terms of look and feel, does this look any much different than this? I don't think so. I mean, you tell me, John.
I think more what you're looking, is like the main layout, not necessarily the decor. That's something to keep in mind, because we are going to probably 90% of Airbnbs have some type of value add that you can come in and do. So you're just looking at like overall space and layout, and is it similar to the same, right? That one has a big open living room. Does the other one have a big open living room? They look very similar actually in those pictures. So that's the part, like, hey, maybe the other one has better furniture decor right now, but that you kind of got to look through that to the actual layout. And if the layouts are very similar and like they're both about the same, and they both have some of the same amenities, then that's where, yes, they can do the same. If the furniture is different, well, we can always put new furniture in ours.
Yep. And so, and as I'm scrolling through all this, like John said, I mean, it's the bones of it. It looks, very identical in a lot of similar places, right? It looks like this one has a secondary place to meet. This one does as well, right? This has a secondary little area for lounging in addition to the front room right here, right? So yeah, so there's a lot of things and a lot of similarities. And really, this is what I'm doing, is I'm essentially going through the list as I know where my property is. I'm looking at different properties and determining, can I compete with this? Is this similar in nature? This one has a bit more theme, but same concept, open living room. Looks like it has an open floor space with where the kitchen's at. This one does have a pool. They look like they put a game room in the middle of it. And so I would say the other one's kitchen is actually bigger from what I'm seeing. But again, all we're doing is we're just looking and collecting data of properties that are in the same area, and can I compete with them? Do they look like they're going to be different than what product I could deliver? And really, I think an important piece to that, to John's point, is like just seeing significant differences in the property. If one has, let's say, a jacuzzi, a built-in jacuzzi, that's an amenity that is unquantifiable in the sense that I can't compare it to mine because mine doesn't have a built-in jacuzzi, right?
Yep.
And so looking at the bones and the structure of each property on whether or not I can compete with it based on really the layout and the actual property and asset itself. And again, we're kind of condensing this. We obviously have, very long versions of these underwrites, and that's all information that you guys can get to us. And whenever I'm underwriting a property, it's taking me a solid 45 minutes to an hour just to write a single property because of some of the things I'm doing. So now that I have identified the property, I've put the specs in AirDNA as they are, and then I've looked at, I usually am underwriting. When I'm underwriting, I'm comparing and analyzing the 5 to 10 properties in the same area. And I'm trying to be in as close to my property as possible. I'm also not going to take properties that have an amenity that is really something I can't replicate, such as right on the beach, right? This property right here, it's literally right on the beach. You can walk out to it. I cannot compete with that. This is a good one to be able to look at and be like, can you compete with this? Frankly, no, because you don't have a bar. You don't like.
Yeah,
you don't
I'm glad you said that, because just because they're close does not mean the same. And that's where understanding the market a little bit, as well as like, hey, you might be just 3 blocks away from a completely different type of neighborhood, or like in this case, you have like just a normal, looks like beach area neighborhood versus now you're talking about directly on the beach. And so that's where, like, even though they're close, you still want to take into consideration likeness. You are looking for ones that are almost as close to or exactly like the one you are underwriting to get the best feel. And even if your exact same house, I guarantee will do better on the beach. So yeah, you can't take one that's comparatively right on the beach. So yeah.
100%. And you also want to take into account the ones that have revenues that are maybe, historic, like significantly lower, because that's important, right? Because just as important as seeing a property that is doing well is seeing one that's not doing well and understanding why, right? Notice how on these ones, 188, 101, these are 6 figures. And then I have this one that's right next to it that's 45. What's the obvious thing that this one doesn't have?
No pool.
No pool, right? And that tells me right away, hey, that is why this property is doing well, because the pool is quite literally, as I look at all these other comps, almost an extra $50,000 a year in revenue. Yeah, just by having, and that alone tells me a lot, right? It tells me enough to be like, hey, if I'm ever going to buy a property here, one of the criteria and amenities it has to have is a pool. Has to have a pool, right? And so again, you're just collecting data to be able to make sure that you do an appropriate underwrite, right? Anything else you want to add, John, before I kind of move on to the next step?
No, I think we've hit the main points. Stick to ones that are close, as identical, and then that have mainly the same amenities is what you're looking for. So you stick to those things, nothing crazy. Don't pick a 2-bedroom to analyze to our 5. Don't pick one on the beach to analyze ours that's 6 blocks from the beach.
Yep. Okay. So the next step in this, and really what you guys should be doing, is I am getting 3 realistic comparables. Okay. Again, I'm not doing the ones that are right on the beach because I can't compete with that. I'm also not doing ones that are lowballing myself because this one doesn't have a pool, right? My property's going to be better than this. I'm getting as many as I can. I like to stay around 5 to 10. And there's 3 values that you're looking for to get to move over to a calculator. There's 3 values that I'm going to need from each of these listings. The first one is the ADR. okay, which is the average daily rate based on what's being done here. Okay, and it makes it really easy because they have it here. It's 414. The occupancy, and then the cleaning fee. Those are the three values that I need. So in cleaning fee, AirDNA makes it easy because two of those values are right here: occupancy, ADR, average daily rate. The cleaning fee is the next one that all you have to do is just go and, as if you're going to book, and it should break it down right here for you. $295. Okay. And as I get every number, all three of those numbers for each property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to seek an average of those three numbers for all 10 properties or however many you're underwriting. So if I'm underwriting 10 of them, I'm going to take those three numbers, add them together up individually. So I'm going to take all the ADR for all 10. I'm going to take all of the cleaning fees for all 10. I'm going to take all the occupancy for all 10, and I'm going to divide it by 10. So I'm going to get me an average. And those three numbers are going to be vitally important for the next step, which is our calculator. This is where you're going to plug them in, okay? Now, this is a calculator that is for our community. We are going to be giving it to you guys for free. So if you guys want this, just text us, DM me or John, and we'll make sure to get you guys a link that you guys can download to get this. We'll also, maybe we'll even include that in the comments below. I don't know if you want to find a link.
Yeah,
to
I'll
that.
see if I can find the link.
Yeah, and then we can just like pin it so that people have it. But basically what we're doing is we are taking, again, those values that we have, and we are now going to plug them into our calculator. Can you see the calculator, John? Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. You can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've already found a deal that has creative terms. And again, as John had mentioned, we essentially went and found that through a wholesaler. And we just plugged and played a lot of these values. Now, I want to walk you through them. Purchase price, down payment. This is the beauty of creative deals, is we're only paying 9% down for property like this. Interest rate is 4.3%. Closing costs are usually estimated between 1% and 2%. To be safe, I probably should do 2%. This will auto-calculate everything that you need, your cash to close in terms of the down payment and the closing costs. And then I always like to do a budget that is predetermined based on some of the updates I want to do as I was looking at my underwrite, right? As I was looking at some of the comparables, I noticed that one of them had a game room with a game table. I maybe want to do that. I'd like to add a mural, what have you, right? The one we had decent amenities, but there is obviously some room for us to be able to go in and add to. So I added in there about a $10,000 budget for us to go and add additional renovations. So our all in on this property is $100,000. And right away, that's just a little over 10%. It's probably close to what, 13% maybe.
Yep.
Of purchase price. And this is all in. This is to buy the property, furnished. This is the beauty of creative, right? And again, I just found this through a wholesaler, right? We just found this through a relationship that was on a Facebook page that was selling property. I then took my three numbers. So I took the average of the things that I was looking at, which is the ADR, the average daily rate. That was the average of my comps. The occupancy, which is the average of my comps. And then the average total cost monthly of X amount of turnovers, which you can speculate. Usually my rule of thumb is for every 10% of occupancy that you have is going to be one clean. So usually it's 10 to 15%. So for this, if I'm using 15%, at 15%, 15 divided by 70 that's about 5. So I took 5 cleans of the average cost, and I times the average cost of one clean times 5 to get my monthly number of cleaning expense. Okay. And then I plugged those three numbers into here. And then I found the rest of these. These are all numbers that you guys should be able to find just by Googling, right? Just by doing your research and your market research, calling management companies, real estate agents, everything like that. These expenses are fairly easy to find if you just put some elbow grease into them, right? But the idea is that I understand all of my terms of the purchase. I understand my budget. I understand what I'm going to be making on this property based on my occupancy and on the ADR given the comps and the analysis that I did on the other properties that were similar. And then I put in all of my average costs, right? And this calculator makes it very, very simple for you to essentially see your total profitability. So based on this deal, I essentially know that I'm going to be seeing, in an ideal world, $1,600 a month. I should be making about 20% cash on cash year one on this property, right? And these are assuming that these numbers are correct and you're going to deliver on them, right? But the beauty about this calculator is that we can essentially play with them, right? What if my occupancy wasn't nearly as good as I thought? What if instead of 70, it was actually only 55, right? That's going to tank my numbers. Just that alone, managing the same ADR, I'm going to see now a loss of about $300 a month, right? So I know that I need to make sure that I'm performing at least at a 60 to 65% occupancy to be able to deliver on a cash flowing asset. If I can at the very least do 60% in occupancy, then I'm at the very least going to be doing $350 of cash flow a month. And typically, this is how I like to play with the calculator to be able to determine a low, mid, and high analysis for my properties. Is determining, okay, if we don't have just as much occupancy, okay, what does it look like here? If our cleaning expenses maybe aren't nearly as expensive, instead of $2,700, it's only $2,000 because I'm cleaning it myself. How does that affect my numbers, right? And so just being able to input these numbers and play with them gives us a good idea of whether a deal is a good deal or not, whether I should buy that deal or not. And the beauty about this calculator, guys, is we make it really easy for you to know your long-term picture. So you come to the second page, it actually plugs into you and lets you see, okay, at what point am I made whole on the cash put in? This is saying in about 7 years, you should see all of your initial money that you put in back in cash flow. And that's not even counting equity. And so this gives you all of the numbers. This should give you an initial return on your investment, net proceeds after sale, including a commission to an agent, the mortgage down, the pay down on the mortgages, your principal pay down. And these are your 10-year totals. And these are off of pretty conservative estimates, which those estimates are at the top here. I'm estimating that my operating expenses increases 3% while my gross income increases 2%. So I'm actually estimating that my operating expenses is getting more expensive than me making money. And then on top of that, the appreciation is only at a 3% interest rate a year annually, which is, John can attest to this. That's a very conservative number, in my opinion. So, but this just kind of gives you an assessment of risk when you're looking at your property. So, and then this just has a normal AM schedule. So, John, do you have any thoughts? Anything you want to add? Is there any questions?
Yeah.
If you're watching this and you have questions, please let us know. But go ahead.
Yeah, the one part I wanted to add is the value of creative finance that maybe got lost on there just a little bit, and the fact that all-in investment is $100,000, right? Which is, I calculated 11.9%, right? As opposed to going and getting a DSCR loan at 20% down, right? But that just takes into us adding $10,000 to an already existing Airbnb. If you looked at all those other houses, and let's say you just invested 15%, so you add another 3%, that's $25,000 more, which would increase that, furnishing the house to $35K. So how much more value could you add to that house if you had $35K to play with to go in there and make that the sickest Airbnb in that neighborhood? So now you have 10 properties that you think are very similar, all the same size, and now yours is already existing, and you go in and drop another $35K into your property, into murals, artwork, game rooms, arcades, pool table, and just fully deck your Airbnb out to be like the cream of the crop of those at that you underwrite. So now you're going to be the standard of that size home and house, and you can do that all with now 15% total invested into that purchase price. I think that's something that, like, on the creative side, especially to an existing Airbnb, it already did 106,000. There's a couple around it doing 120, 130. You go drop 15% total on that investment, which would be an extra 35K you could dump into that property. And then that's where I think you really solidify. We're going to smash the 70% occupancy. We are going to be at the top of the ADR. Like, everybody that has kids is going to go stay at ours because we have stinking slides from the first floor to the second floor, and all the bedrooms are themed, and we have a whole game room that has 7 arcades, because you don't have to spend all the money on all that other stuff. It's already there, and you put it all into just pure entertainment. And then now you have a house that you're still into for only 15%, as opposed to going and doing this the old way. So I think that's where just the power of creative and being able to, like, not only get a great deal, but now you can cash flow like crazy if you actually invest a little bit more than just the minimum on that, and you make that house be like the cream of the crop in that area, and make the other people around there go, dang, we need to probably add more money to ours. So I think that's something too that's really awesome about the way this all works out.
And he's exactly right, because all I did when I was doing here is I just upped our budget. So I added, cost per bedroom, cost per common space, and that upped our amount in. But then I just did some projections of, instead of 450, what if we moved our ADR to 500 because we decided to increase more, and we're seeing a bit more occupancy, right? Even with maybe an increased cost in, let's call it, the actual cleaning fee, because there's a little bit more to clean or things of that nature, I'm still coming out on a 30%. I've increased effectively in this new model 10%. My cash on cash is what I've increased, right? For me, being able to just incrementally increase my budget from 10 to 34. So I just added $24,000 to make an additional 10% cash on cash year one, right? And that is, to your point, John, this is the beauty of creative finance, and this is why we underwrite with these types of scenarios. So,
yep. There was a question in there. Someone came in late, like, hey, how are we assuming a 4.5% interest rate on the loan? That doesn't make sense. Back at the beginning, just to reiterate, this is a deal that was brought to us that is already a negotiated creative finance deal, asking if we want to purchase. And so it's already, I think the existing note is at 4.375, and then the seller carry note portion is at 3%. So the blended rate that he has on there at 4.5 is actually probably high. The real rate, the real loan amount on this should, I think, be, the interest rate is probably more like 4.1 when we blend the two together. So that's because it's creative finance. So not only is our interest rate half of the market rate, our down payment on it is only like 9%, I think, and then we're putting in 2%. But if we show those numbers, we bump it to like, hey, let's put in 6%. Let's put in more into making this like the best one in the whole neighborhood to really bump up all our numbers. Then that's how we got to that. We got to those numbers.
And listen, we are abundance guys, meaning that we just want to continue to give value to this group. And this is one of the big pieces of value that I'll give you. Pace Morby is somebody that I consider a mentor. He's known as essentially the creative finance king. And he has a free Facebook page similar to ours that focuses on creative finance. And this is the page right here. And this is how we found it, is you just scroll down. Look, literally the first thing here is a deal, turnkey, 8K entry, Cape Coral, Florida, sub 2 deal, right? This is a 330 purchase price, 6.25 interest rate. There's no balloon, meaning there's no refinance. $8,000 to get into this property, right? And granted, you do need to make sure that just because it's only $8,000 to get in, that doesn't mean it's a great deal, right? That's why we have this tool, right? So that you can find deals like this to be able to then turn over and understand the model and be able to plug it in to see if it's a good deal or not. This is quite, in essence, what we teach really well. It's combining these two worlds, right? Is known as the caster, creative acquisitions, deals where you're getting, properties at $8,000 down, combined with short-term rentals, which is this right here. That is the caster method. And this is again, the gas that we want to continue to bring to you guys so that you guys can see it and have it and understand.
So there's another question that I think if I do a brief recap, we'll answer it. So when you're buying, do you use AirDNA for the actual property? What if the ones around it what if the property you're looking at has less than desirable actual rental numbers, but everyone around seems to be killing it? So here would be my answer to that in kind of a brief summary of what we talked about. When you are looking at your property and you are looking at the properties that are near it, are the actual amenities or the actual structural portions of the property the same? Is it an open concept? Is the living room size about the same? Does it have the same number of bedrooms? Does it have the same number of bathrooms? Does it have a built-in spa? No spa? Does it have a pool? No pool? If your property that you are looking at is the same as all of those in those areas, but the actual design and amenities are different, then I would be okay taking a property that has actual poor numbers and believe that I can invest money into it and turn it into a property that does just as well as the surrounding ones that have all the same attributes. And so, I guess to answer that, yes, I look at the actual property, but if it's just poorly run and poorly operated, but has all the bones and the structure of the exact same houses around it that are doing really well, okay, if I infuse money into making it nice, putting the game room like the other ones have, if it has it doesn't have a spa, but all the other ones do, put in a spa, then I can be very confident that that house will do at least the same as those houses around it. And so, if it's different, if it's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and you're looking at 3 bedrooms around, then no, I would not. I would be like, okay, yeah, maybe that one just is poor. But if it's the same attributes, same size, has a pool, both open concept, both full bathrooms, not at one has a half bath, all that stuff is the same, then yes, you should be confident that you should be able to, if you operate at a high level, get that property to perform as all the other ones that you are looking at. So,
And guys, just to add to that, right? Like part of the levers that we can pull or that you should be able to pull, being a part of this community is operating at a better quality and rate than most of the operators in the world. And so, and that just comes from being a part of this community, coming to these videos, coming to these, because, you know, one of our very first few videos that we did in trainings was on how to increase your occupancy with pictures, right? These are all little things that matter in this game that most people, when they're not involved with the community, just don't know. And they're just like throwing, frankly, shiz at the wall, right? And hoping it sticks. And so there's a lot of things that can be learned by being a part of this community, coming to these trainings, but more additionally, like reaching out to me and John individually to be able to have us be able to, you know, to allow us to help you guys in whatever capacity. So, yeah. So, John, is there anything else you want to go over in terms of underwriting? I feel like we did a good job of covering kind of the nuts and bolts.
I think so too. I mean, I've just so everyone's clear, I've watched at least 3 other courses on underwriting that were probably anywhere from 5 to 7 hours long, and so this is just the top. You can really, really dive into the details, and when you're looking at 30 properties to compare to your one, like it should take some time. It should take some effort. So if you feel like it's taking you a while, this was as brief as an overview as we could give without spending 3 hours going over a real full deep underwrite or teaching. At least once you get good, it shouldn't take you, or fast, it shouldn't take you that long. But yeah, so I just want to give that disclaimer that our 15-minute presentation on how we kind of go about that really is more involved when you're going to put your money on the line for it,
and when you're doing it well, right?
Yeah.
Because again, yeah, to John's point, a lot of this is essentially just making sure that it is a good decision. But more than anything, what we've given you guys, frankly, is more information than I had when I bought my first deal. So
Yeah.
You're already ahead of the game.
Me too.
Yeah, so don't use our losses as your gain to be able to make better decisions. But at the end of the day, the best teacher in anything is experience, and so just getting out there and just running it is going to be extremely valuable. These resources that we're sharing with you guys are free, and so please reach out to me or John. We can get it to you guys. We'll even maybe, John, if you can, put it in the comments. But
I did already. I'll put it again.
Nice. And then, and I can even pin it. So if it's there, so if you guys have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out, utilize some of the resources that we want to give you guys. And then, and if there's anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. So, John, you got any last parting words, brother?
Nope, all good.
Okay. Hey, well, thank you guys again for letting us be part of your Wednesday evening. Thanks for being here. Whether you're watching this live or later, appreciate you. Please let us know if you need anything. We will see you guys next week.
Later.
Bye.